put an entry on your own chain because only you have the private key.
So it's a little bit like language. When they speak your language, you recognize that and then interact. Is it a little bit like?
Yeah, you can definitely think of it that way. Like the reason that I can understand the sentence. Yeah, I can understand your sentence because we speak the same rules. Like we know the grammar of that.
You will understand it and then you just ignore it.
Exactly. Or worse, I can start saying to other people, well, if you start lying, I don't just ignore it. I say to the other people, this guy's lying. Don't listen to him.
The immune system. Well, that's very interesting. But okay, maybe it's a little bit going. But let's say you have water. You have water as in the form of gas, liquidity, or ice. So if one let's say ecosystem recognizes only gas, then if the water shifts, I don't know if I'm describing it, but so that's the way how different agents and applications can interact within Holochain, like when they really speak the same language. Because I'm just trying to understand, because it's not like segregated like Bitcoin and Ethereum. They don't speak between each other.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So let me describe the composability architecture that we have. So every application is a separate application, and it runs its own separate distributed hash table. And the application gets identified by the hash of the DNA, i.e. the code, i.e. the validation rules and all of the exposed functions that make the API of that application. So every application is signed by a hash. But what we do is we allow for, and any agent can basically run lots of different applications, like let's say a Facebook and a Twitter application. You run them together, and you as the agent say, I want all my tweets to go to my Facebook. So through the user interface, literally the agent interface, you create a rule, a bridging rule between the two applications. So we do composability through agency. And that means that you can connect your Twitter and your Facebook, and somebody else can connect their Twitter to, their MySpace equivalent or to whatever other applications that show up. So this creates a very powerful way of thinking about composability. And you do it because the Facebook as a central organization has an API that will connect it to Twitter. You don't have to wait for the central organization to do it. You can start connecting the two applications at your end as an agent. You can just do that. There's nothing key. So that we do composability of applications at the agent end. Another outcome of agent-centric approach and the agent-centric mindset, instead of trying to create one central reality, one data world that has to live out there somewhere.
What you just described reminds me the Medium article that one of the core developer of Ethereum of Holochain wrote about microservices.
Exactly.
Is that kind of what you just described?
Absolutely. And so, in fact, actually, we will convene a meeting in the next couple of weeks that we call the Department of Names Department, because I think actually this term that we talk about, a Holochain application, we have to rename it. We actually have to call what we used to call a Holochain application, I think we have to call it a Holochain service. And the thing that looks like an application actually looks more like an aggregation of services. So, for example, one very interesting way of creating private channels in a Slack application is to create each channel as an application, its own private space. Right? It's a full application on the network, a tiny little micro application or not really a microservice. I think we will call them services as opposed to microservices or something. We have to come up with a new name. But really, you have it exactly right. It has to do with assembling of these small, stable units of functionality that that provide the kinds of functionality that we want.
It basically is less fragmented.
Yeah.
So when you are right now organizing training for developers and etc. We saw
Yep.
that on the Holochain
Yep.
website, and you say if you want to develop a decentralized application, actually that should be named if you want to be developed decentralized services, and because it's right when you say that when you name it application, we see something like Facebook. We see something like we see places, you know.
Yes.
And I don't think it's that's what is very difficult to.
That is worlds. It's like, you know, it's so funny because I've been a little bit active in following like social media, what's happening, and all these people coming up the ICO, and it's completely different. And it's so difficult to break through those you know, thinking in the box, in the blocks.
Exactly.
Yes, good as look.
Exactly.
No, it's also me. It's like every time I go into it, it's like, oh, like wait.
Yeah.
Understand it.
I think our experience, the biggest shift comes from moving from a data-centric to an agent-centric viewpoint of reality. Like, and this actually it pervades a lot of computing. And so, I mean, I have a training as a computer scientist, right? So I did my degree in that, and I've written software forever. And even me, I've like to think, oh no, we don't have data at the center. What we have consists of the action of agents, and that kind of flip, it takes a little getting used to, but then things get really interesting and get really easy from that point of view. And they get easy because the world actually is built out of agents, right? It actually matches the way things work in the world. The blockchain actually is really hard because trying to pretend like you can have that doesn't match what actually happens in the world.
Also now it's a little bit, because I had a question about Holo, the hosting app, in relation to Holochain, how that benefit, because apparently it will benefit when there are more and more applications, services mentioned on Holochain, because they'll need the space. And they'll interact with, is that also maybe.
Yeah, so I'll just speak to that. So basically, Holo, you can understand it as a strategic move. When you want to create a something really new that in essence requires every single computer on the planet to install infrastructure, you can't expect that will work. Like if we really want Holochain to reach its success, every computer should run on it, just like should have a Holochain Holochain capable node running on it, just like pretty much every computer on the planet, or at least laptop or cell phone, has a browser running on it, right? So we need to have that kind of penetration of the marketplace. And we can't expect to do that by telling people, hey, we got this cool thing, go install it. It's hard to install a piece of software. That's not an easy thing to do.
So you kickstart it.
Right? And so the idea is we know lots of people will because they want to do this and it's cool and it has a value add and so on. But we also have to then make the applications that get created in that distributed space available to people who just have a browser. So the strategy is you just have a browser, you can still use applications because the browser goes to the Holo, essentially the CDN. It acts as a content delivery network and chooses somebody who is running a Holo port, who is running Holochain with a Holo-enabled Holochain app running to serve that application. So basically what we can do is we can create a marketplace where people who want to tell their clients, hey, your Facebook app is being run on this distributed network and you don't have any Facebook in the center, but you can still go and access it. That seems like a good strategic move. And I mean, I think other people agree because otherwise we wouldn't have had as successful an ICO as we had. But so, for example, I have a company that I wrote, I started, almost 15 years ago that it's a web application that does a writing workshop for authors. I did this in a previous life. Now that application, there's no way I can get all of my clients to install Holochain, but I would love for that to live on Holochain and be served on Holochain networks instead of on some private server that I have to pay money to and so on. Instead, I'd love it to be served in Holo. And so I'm going to have to rewrite my application in Holochain, connect it to Holo, and hopefully my same clients won't know a single bit of difference. To them, it'll look exactly the same. Meanwhile, the ones who do want to know about it, maybe they don't have to pay the membership fee because they self-host. They carry their own weight because they actually are carrying the weight of their own hosting on their own Holochain nodes. So, and then over time, I think we'll get adoption, especially if we get some of the kinds of strategic partnerships that are showing up, where we'll end up having Holochain installed inside some very widely distributed pieces of software. Then we can get pervasive adoption. But in the meantime, you get the strategy.
I have a question because before the video meeting, we were watching the video done by one of the core developers explaining the technical stuff, and he told about the sharding aspect. So if someone which is hosting the application it go offline, the application will still run because there will be a number of nodes get a copy of that. But does it mean that for an application to be stable, there should be from a lot of user running this application, or it can be one copy given to one of the Holo hosts? I don't know if you understand me correctly.
Yeah. No, I think I understand the question. So, the answer to that question depends on the application, right? Because some applications have very high uptime requirements, and it also depends on the properties of the hosts that are online. Are they very stable on nice close backbones, or do they live very far in the edge where trees fall on wires and they go down for a week? And so it depends on a lot of different factors, both who's hosting it and what the needs are about how many copies. Like how crucial is it that, because one can go down, 2 can go down, 3, 100 can go down. How important is it as your value proposition of what you promise as an application that you will have at least one copy of the data available? Right? So we have the same issue in centralized systems. They have to make a decision around that. Now, the way we do the algorithm, what we call the resilience algorithm, is that when you create an application, you say, I need 10 copies or 100 copies or 2 copies of every bit of data. I have to have that. That's what I require for this application. So the application designer sets that. Now, the infrastructure, what it does is it doesn't say 2 machines have to be online. It says 2 machines multiplied by their uptime have to be online. So if a machine's uptime is 50%, that means you have to have 4 machines before you get to 2 resilient copies. Okay. And so the nodes, they all look at that. They record the experience of their uptime of the other nodes because they keep checking in. They say, hey, do you still have a copy of the data, of the portion of the data we have the responsibility to hold? And they keep checking that in on a periodic basis. And if some node disappears, then they say, uh-oh, this node went down. You need to have it. And so then that node starts to hold it. And they do a check based on uptime about how much, how many machines hold to reach the redundancy factor N for that particular application.
Okay.
Otherwise, we still have 7 minutes left because we have the
Yeah. It's first time I'm using Zoom.
Oh yeah.
It appears that with the free version we have only 1 hour of.
We have 6 minutes left.
Yeah, I think it's.
No, they do 40 minutes. So you can. I think you can just call back if we need to. We can do another one, or I can give you a channel to call into, or something like that. You can try again. Sure. Or you. I mean, what I can. The other thing we could do is I could give you a Zoom, an appear-in room that I have. That is very easy and will work.
Also, yeah.
I don't know if
I also have an appear channel. Maybe
Here?
you get already the. Maybe Eric, maybe you could send the channel here, your appear
Yep.
channel,
Uh-huh.
and then you can switch to it.
Sure, we can do that. There we go. Oops, sorry, not the right thing. Well, either way, I mean, as you like. So here we have the appearance.
Okay.
Yeah. And probably go with the normal camera. Yeah.
Introduce with normal.
Because normally it's the ghost priority. Yeah. Allow camera.
Yeah.
And authorized.
Okay, so I will leave this meeting and come back in the